Good afternoon, everybody. Ryan Wagasback, Senior Vice President of NATA. Sorry about the delay. Got a little technology issues. Can everybody hear me okay?
They're all on mute, Ryan, but yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Ellen. Ashley, are you on?
Yeah, I am. Sorry about that. I tried computer, phone. I tried every way I could. It wouldn't let me on.
It's got to be the coronavirus. I don't know what's going on either, so I apologize everybody for the delay. But again, we're honored today to have Ashley Smith to shed some light on this interesting time that we're facing. Ashley is President and DO of Jet Logistics, who is has been on the front lines, to be candid, with dealing with the coronavirus and in the private sector. So let's just jump in, Ashley, if you're okay with it. Can you kind of share with us what you're seeing, kind of the challenges and some ways that we can start mitigating some of these risks during these challenging times?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and it'll probably be a relatively short call because there's not a whole lot to really share and discuss. To give you a little background, Jet Logistics signed a contract with the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, about 2 years ago, and it was the purpose of the contract was to support the government in case of biological terrorism or some sort of biological crisis event. Never thought the contract would turn into anything, and then I guess mid-February or maybe it was around the 18th or 20th, we got a call from HHS with the request to start moving people who had been either tested positive for coronavirus or are actually symptomatic, showing symptoms of having the virus. I don't remember the exact date we started flying, and to be quite honest about it, due to security, confidentiality, and HIPAA reasons, I can't really talk about specific missions or specific patients. But somewhere around 20 February, I think we started moving people. These are the people that came in from China on the Kalita 747. They were flown into Travis Air Force Base, and then we started moving them from Travis to various places around the country. We went through some fairly extensive training before HHS would allow us to start doing these movements. The training lasted probably a half a day or so. We learned quite a bit about the virus itself and then mitigation tactics, that type of stuff, as far as flying these folks. The things that I have noticed through both training and experience of flying these people, this is a very similar virus to the common cold, the flu. It's just another virus. It's a different strain, so it has a few things about it that are slightly different, but it's not significantly different. So your mitigation considerations for this are no different than the flu or even the common cold. It's transferred by human water droplets. So if somebody sneezes on you, if somebody sneezes on something and then you touch it, even that won't give you the virus. You've got to ingest that somehow into your body. So one of the things that if you're going to have to fly somebody who you suspect may have this virus, but more importantly has the virus, the person in the aircraft that should be wearing the mask is the person that's sick, not you. Because unless, and the reason I say that is because it's those human water droplets are going to come out of their mouth. I mean, unless you see somebody who's found some way to squirt human saliva out of their ears, it's going to come out of their mouth. So if they're the ones wearing the mask, that's going to keep that from getting out and onto materials in the surfaces of the aircraft, their luggage, anything else that they touch. That's one thing you can do. But to protect yourself, whether wearing a mask or not, I don't think it really helps you because you can ingest those water droplets through your eyes, through your ears, any orifice in your body. So unless you're going to cover up your entire body with a whole suit, I don't think you can prevent that from happening. But what you can do is wear latex gloves, lots of hand sanitizer, even hand sanitizer on the latex gloves when you're touching luggage, when you're touching anything that they may have touched in the aircraft, because you don't know if they didn't sneeze into their hand or something. They touch the luggage, they touch the arm rail in the aircraft, the seats, those types of things. So if you touch it, you could then, in theory, pick up the virus on your hands or your gloves. And then if you rub your face, you rub your eyes, you stick your finger in your ear, whatever. If you get those water droplets in your body, that's how you're going to get the virus. Lysol works. what HHS used to clean our aircraft after we flew these folks, so they cleaned them every single time we flew somebody. In fact, a few times they cleaned the aircraft when we didn't have anybody in the back of the airplane, just because it's a habit. They used the 50-50 mixture of warm water and Clorox, and they would go wipe every single surface down the entire aircraft as best they could. And then you want to leave it open and let everything dry out real well, so that hopefully everything's evaporated and all that stuff's gone. Some other operational considerations. We started out moving people in a Lear 36. That was not my choice of aircraft. Unfortunately, it was all I had to offer with very short notice. If we continue to move these folks, we'll be switching to the Hawker 800. Reason why, outflow valves are in the tail of the Hawker. They're in the nose of the Lear. And we want to create a forward to rear airflow. So if there is any airborne water droplets, we prefer they go out the back of the aircraft, because the patients are all sitting towards the rear of the cabin. With the Lear, it's going the other way. So if they were to sneeze, it goes forward past the med team and then up to the cockpit. So on the flights that we did, we actually wore N95 respirators. I don't recommend people trying to do that for long periods of time. First of all, they're very uncomfortable. They get hot. And ATC starts to get mad when they have to ask you 3 or 4 times what you were trying to say. The voice doesn't transmit real well through the mask into the boom mic of your headset. You kind of start sounding a little bit like Charlie Brown's school teacher. So those are some of the best. I may be leaving something out, but I'm kind of shooting from the hip here. It's been a pretty busy time, and I hadn't had a chance to sit down and make a whole bunch of notes. But I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. My question I've got initially is vital oxide via fogging machines, I've been told. Have you seen any use of that? That I've been told that kills about 99.9% of viruses. Has that been used in the operation?
We have not used it so far. We did have the same question that came up. There is and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me. There is a fogger that we think can be used. Unfortunately, we have not been able to find it available. They're on back order at the moment. But you certainly want to talk to your maintenance people about whatever fogger you're using. Make sure you know what's in it, so that you're not sticking a corrosive item somewhere in the airplane that you don't want it to go. Make sure you're aware of what the substance is of that particular fogger, so that you know it's not going to create any issues in places that you can't see.
Yeah, I was told for to go through your cleaning provider. Typically, some of these larger cleaning companies provide the fogging machines and have access to the vital oxide that can defumigate the cabins. The other question that I've been asking, please go on, if you've got questions, please go on and enter your questions in so I can see them, hopefully, and I can get those addressed by Ashley. And if not, we can get those questions answered for you. Servicing the labs, equipment needed. Are there any specific things you've seen, running in a live case? Any different precautions that you've had to take?
No.
Specifically international?
So let me go back to what you said about the fogger. One thing to keep in mind, the reason I'm not overly concerned about whether we use a fogger or we don't use a fogger, because let's say that somebody who's positive with the virus sneezes, all right, and it goes on the cup rail, the aircraft, the seat backs, whatever. You can wipe all those things down. The purpose of the fogger is to get to places that you wouldn't ordinarily see. Well, okay, so they sneeze and maybe those water droplets get to someplace back in the interior, in between the seams of the seat or things like that. Well, I mean, are you really that concerned about it? I mean, unless somebody is trying to shove their hand down between the sidewall and the seat, cup rail, you're not going to get it anyway. So foggers are fine. It's probably overkill in my opinion. But if you can't get them, I wouldn't be overly concerned. The surfaces that you can see, the places that these water droplets could land, those are the things you got to be worried about. And you could probably get to that with, a rag, certainly spray Lysol, that type of stuff, Clorox wipes, that type of thing I think you can get to. As far as your question, Ron, about the lavatory, service in the lavatory is a normal biohazard anyway. whether somebody's used that lavatory that has a coronavirus or not, there certainly could be things in there that you don't want to get on you as a person. So your normal protection that you would use, such as latex gloves, a face shield, a gown or a apron, that type of thing, something that's made out of plastic, you'd want to just do the same things you would ordinarily do. And then cleaning the inside of the lavatory, same type of thing. You're going to clean it the same way you clean the rest of the interior. I don't think there's any differences. Our contract with HHS is for CONUS only, so we haven't flown anything outside of the continental United States for this particular contract. So I haven't had any experience with international labs since this started. We're just moving people once they get back into the States. So, we're picking people up at the various military bases and then taking them out to some of these regional centers. The federal government, to their credit, I'm a huge critic of how they've approached this, but to their credit, back after 9/11, they were worried about bioterrorism and somebody setting off some sort of biological weapon. So they created a whole separate division of the government that deals with this type of stuff. And there are regional centers around the country that are designed to deal with biological terrorism. But each of these regional centers is not designed to take on 3,000 cruise ship people at one time.
Right.
So they're bringing them into certain places that have the most capacity, and then they're spreading them out to these smaller regional centers, and they may only have 10 or 15 beds, but they need all the beds they can get right now as they watch these people and start studying the virus, and they're trying to learn the various mitigation tactics. I'm hoping that the government will get a little bit smarter and they'll start focusing on care, because right now there's nothing we're going to do to stop it. Everybody on this call is eventually going to get coronavirus. You can have some impact on when you get it, but you're eventually going to get it. Just like everybody has a cold eventually, everybody has a flu eventually. You can do as much as you want to try to prevent it, and you may kick the can down the road, but eventually you're probably going to get it. They need to be focused on the best ways to deal with it once somebody has it, and also focus on the people that are at highest risk, older people and people that have reduced immunization systems. Those are my parents are in their late 70s, so we certainly need to do all we can to make sure that they are not exposed to it. But for the average person on the call, those of us in the aviation business, pilots especially, we tend to be in fairly good shape, fairly good health. You may contract the virus and never know you even had it. You could be a carrier and not know that you ever picked it up. So I wouldn't get worried about it. It's not that big of a deal. We only flew a few people that were symptomatic that actually showed symptoms. And if you'd asked me, I'd have said, no, they just got a cold. They had a runny nose. You could tell they didn't feel real well, but they were totally ambulatory. They walked on the plane. They walked off the airplane. You wouldn't have known that they had the virus if they hadn't been tested or had a fever.
Interesting. So we're getting questions coming in. Do you utilize the separation curtain, keep the door shut between the cockpit and cabin on some of your flights?
Yeah. The short answer is yes, we do, and that's another reason I'm hoping to switch to the Hawker this coming week when it comes out of maintenance, because the Hawker has a hard door, and I would much prefer a hard door. In the Lear, we just have a curtain. I'd rather have the hard door, but both would probably serve the same purpose. Again, I don't think it's as big a deal if you've got an aircraft that's designed with a forward to aft airflow. I don't think it's going to be quite as big a deal. I would take more precautions when people are loading and unloading. Once you're in the aircraft, and also the size of the aircraft. If you're in something really small and your distance from your passengers or patients is not very far, that's one thing. If you're flying a Global Express and the people are sitting at the very back and you're up at the front of the cabin, the chances of those water droplets, flying 25, 30 feet, almost impossible in my opinion. I don't know that I'd be quite as concerned about it.
Yes.
So again, common sense goes a long way.
I agree. Do you board the aircraft prior to the patient in order to keep things a little more segregated?
So in the Lear, and for those that are familiar with Lears, the baggage compartment's inside the cabin at the rear. So we had to load in a certain way. We would leave the patients in the ambulance. We load the luggage first. We would typically we took the bags, the luggage, put them in trash bags, and then tied them up. And that way, even though we're wearing latex gloves, we have another layer that protects us from the bag itself. And then we would load all the bags, and then we would load the patient, shut the door and blast off, and then reverse on the other end. Patients go off first into the ambulance, then bring the bags off. And we did not take the time to unbag their luggage. We left that for the people at the facility, wherever they were going.
Okay. So more questions coming in on the pilots. I mean, what have you kind of trained your crews? Are you, when the arrival patient disembarks, are you asking pilots to go shower, get rid of, put their clothes in a separate bag? Any recommendations on that?
So we sort of evolved our process over a couple-week period. In the very beginning, and I personally flew the first few trips, it's just kind of how the way things worked out. I didn't plan it that way. We wore basically full suits. We had latex gloves. We had the respirators. I mean, we had the whole 9 yards. After a while, we started realizing that was overkill. Wasn't really necessary. By the time we got towards the end of my stint being on the airplane, I was wearing gloves and a respirator for loading and unloading. But once I was inside the aircraft, I even took the respirator and the gloves off because it was overkill in my opinion. I don't think it was doing me any good. The patients were wearing masks, and that was the number one thing to keep their water droplets from getting out of their body. If you make them wear the mask catches all those water droplets. So just make sure you don't shove your hand into their mask, and I think you'll probably be okay as far as that goes. We did in the beginning after we flew the very first trip, went and washed the uniforms we were wearing, and I don't know that that's, I mean, it's certainly not a bad thing, but I don't think it's something that you've really got to worry about. If you suspect that somebody sneezed on you or you came in contact with something they could have sneezed on or somehow got some body fluid on, then you probably definitely want to wash that uniform, take a shower, that type of thing. If you feel fairly confident that didn't happen, I don't know that you have to. It's not a bad idea. I just don't know that you need to do it.
Did you take any steps on any changing out HEPA filters?
No, we did not. In fact, I don't know that we have HEPA filters on the Lear 36. I'd have to look and see. I don't think we do. We just have regular outflow valves. Now, that could be something that a fogger would kill any virus that was on the outflow valve. But I don't know how you go stick your hand. I mean, you're going to go stick your hand in the outflow valve and get a virus. I mean, you'd have to really work at it to get to it. As a mechanic, I've changed outflow valves, and they're a bitch to get to. So, not sure how you would get to that. There again, the stuff you can see. If this virus goes down in some place that you can't see, if you can't touch it, you're not going to get the virus. So I wouldn't overthink it.
Has your government contact given any insight into how long the virus survives actually after leaving the host?
I don't think they know, Ryan.
Yeah.
I've talked to several different people, and I've gotten several different answers. The one that seems to be the most common is that it's just another strain of the flu. So the flu typically lasts close to 14 days, worst case scenario. And I think that's where you're hearing this 2-week, 14-day quarantine. Because they figure, within 14 days, you're going to be symptomatic or you're not. And after that, the virus is either going to, die or whatever the case may be, I guess, leave your body, whatever. I'm not a medical person. I just know what I've been told.
And of course, any of your crews been contracted the corona or the cold?
No, nobody's shown any symptoms so far. We're obviously keeping very close tabs on that because if they show, and they're told constantly, if you show any symptoms, most importantly, if you develop a fever, that's going to be, we're going to have to take them off the airplane anyway, because just because you show symptoms and you have a fever doesn't mean you have corona. You could have a cold, you could have a flu. It could be something else. And unfortunately for us, we're like everybody else in the United States right now, we don't have access to testing any more than anybody else does. So we're just going to pull them off the airplane and do the same protocols that we would if they had any other virus.
Okay. And any insight into the HVAC setting, Tim?
We kept it really cold. The reason we did that was for two reasons. The heat, it's my understanding that you don't want it to be an incubator. You don't want the airplane to be an incubator.
Mm-hmm.
The colder is probably better. But most importantly, the folks from the medical teams that were from HHS, as well as ourselves, we're wearing all this garb and stuff, and man, it gets hot. It gets really hot. Mm-hmm. So we kept it much colder than we normally would have it in the aircraft, and we just gave the patients blankets and stuff and said, wrap up if you get cold. And they did. I mean, they looked like little Eskimos in the back. We had it pretty cold.
Okay. Well, and there's been some questions about kind of prior to the flights and in-flight kind of mitigation checklists. And I know one of our member companies, MedAir, has built out kind of a, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 20 questions that you can, kind of assess the passenger and just kind of some basic steps. So I'm happy to get that out to anyone who's interested. You can email me to my email address, ryanw@nata.aero. That's ryanw@nata.aero, and I'm happy to get that out. Again, I think it's, as me and Ashley said, I think it's just trying to get good information out and be smart and, do the basic common sense, hygiene. So is there any other questions for myself or Ashley? Perfect. If you do, please email me. I'm happy to work on getting those answered. Ashley, thank you so much for your insight. Ellen just mentioned helicopters. Has there been any discussion on helicopter operations, precautions? I would say the same thing. Correct, Ashley, as the fixed wing?
Yeah, and I'm not on the rotor wing side of the industry. I know that the rotor wing world has been having some of those conversations, but I don't. The rotor wing people operate a lot like your first responders, your EMS, fire department type folks. They're going to use the same protocols they would for any infectious disease. So they may show up. We've every patient we've dropped off, airport operations has been there. The EMS squads that come out, they're all wearing suits and respirators and all that kind of stuff. I would not be a bit surprised if somebody called 911 and an EMS unit shows up and they're wearing the same stuff, just because if they show up, they may or may not know what they're responding to, so they may decide to go, super conservative and make sure they're covered. And I would expect that the med teams on the rotor wing, probably similar type circumstances. At least right now, while there's so much confusion and ignorance within the nation as a whole, and the best piece of advice I can give people is that this really, I don't want to make it sound like it's not a big deal. It's a big deal, but it's not the big deal that it's being painted out to be in the news media. This is not something that's going to kill thousands and thousands of people. Is it going to infect people, make them sick? Yeah, probably so. But the people that it's going to kill are the same people the flu would have killed or any other kind of infectious disease. They probably would have been killed from something else. It just so happens right now it's the coronavirus. But most of the people on this call don't have anything to be scared of. Just simply use the same good mitigation techniques you would use for any other viral infection. And even if you get it, you're gonna get through it. Don't freak out and panic and make it all that much worse. I don't know why in the hell everybody's going buying toilet paper. I don't get that. It's a virus. Buy Kleenex. I get that, but what's up with all the toilet paper stuff? I don't really follow that.
Well, again, I appreciate it, Ashley. And if you have some questions that pop up or some of your questions didn't get answered, please feel free to email. I'll be happy to send out to everybody who joined the call the in-flight kind of mitigation checklist. And again, safe travels. And like I said, please let me know if you need anything. Email address is ryanw, RYANW, @NATA.aero. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye.